Greetings from LA, my dear friends. This is Daisuke, and I very much hope that this video finds you well and in very good spirits wherever you are in the world. And today, if you don't mind, I would very much like to continue on with our journey, our discussions, our discoveries, and our explorations with respect to the recent releases made by the Criterion Collection during this year of 2023. And specifically, I'd like to focus on a work which is part of a wonderful set released by Criterion, a 4-disc Blu-ray set designated collectively at spine number 1189. And it is this set, which is Bo Widerberg's New Swedish Cinema, focusing in on specific works, feature films of the filmmaker Bo Widerberg. And one such film, which is the third film in this collection on disc number 3, is a film which is described as being from the year 1967, directed by Bo Widerberg. And the name of the film is ELVIRA MADIGAN. Before we move on, let me point out that the Blu-ray menu for ELVIRA MADIGAN has it's a great Blu-ray menu, but it has some moving images that are associated with it. In other words, clips from the film that are then edited together in a montage-like fashion that is set to repeat, and it's in a repeated loop as we have the Blu-ray menu superimposed over those repeated looped images, which I think is really great, and it's really quite fantastic. And that's true for the other Widerberg films as well. Thinking about it, and we haven't had any problems so far, thank goodness, fingers crossed, but thinking about it, I think, and putting on maybe our legal hats for a moment, it might be something that could be a potential, say, gray area or issue when it comes to copyright issues and YouTube. And so in order to avoid any unnecessary entanglement, so far this channel has been, it's clear and it's not in any way in any type of risk when it comes to that sort of issue. But just to be absolutely sure, just to be absolutely safe, it's better to be safe than sorry. What I will do is I will just very gently blur out or block out the Blu-ray menu for this ELVIRA MADIGAN. It's really great, it's really beautiful, and therefore I really encourage you to check out the Blu-ray menu and indeed the film itself. But again, just for purposes of the video discussion, the Blu-ray menu with its repeated looped clips from the film might be somewhat problematic if it was shown in a YouTube video somewhere in the world. So just to be on the safe side, what I've decided to do is just block out that using my very skilled post-production editing techniques. So you'll see a little box or a little blur or something over that, and so I apologize for that, but just for your just to let you know, that's the reason for it. So no issue with the video, no issue with YouTube and this channel, thank goodness, and I hope that will continue going forward. But just to be on the safe side, we will just have that blocked out and move forward from there. But the conversation will still be the same as it is. So I hope you enjoy the conversation about ELVIRA MADIGAN. This is the work, the magnificent work, which is from the filmmaker Bo Widerberg, and this is described as being from the year 1967. It is written, directed, and edited by Bo Widerberg, and the cinematography by Jürgen Persson. And this is starring Pia Dedermark and Tommy Berggren in this work. And once again, please pardon me for my very poor pronunciation, but the work is ELVIRA MADIGAN. And my goodness, what an extraordinary, towering, beautiful, incredibly beautiful achievement that this is, with the wonderful, lush, colorful, rich, intimately lit and blissful cinematography, the Persson cinematography, Jürgen Persson cinematography, under the guiding hand of the direction by Bo Widerberg, with the the so intimately rendered portrait performances by Pierre Dagerberg and Tommy Bergen, respectively, as with the story of a very famous romance between two people, again based in history, but then rendered here for purposes of the cinematic audiences, together with a combination of Vivaldi and very memorably Mozart to accompany the musical soundtrack and score, together with this color photography in this tale of romance and intimacy and tragedy and happiness and heartbreak and beauty. This is the work ELVIRA, MADIGAN. So ELVIRA MADIGAN is part of the set, Bo Widerberg's new Swedish cinema from the Criterion collection. And it's incredibly famous work. And if we were to try to focus in on the plot or story structure of ELVIRA MADIGAN, we are focusing in on our two main characters, our protagonists, if, in a manner of speaking, Hedvig Jensen and Sixten Spare. So Sixten and Hedvig. And we have the romance between the two of them. And we have this interesting interplay between identity and naming, Hedvig or ELVIRA MADIGAN. And the romance, I think we are introduced to it almost immediately, and very intimate, very quite, I think, almost in a wonderfully, beautifully day-to-day routine sort of way between the two of them, as part of their ritual routine meeting in the beautiful environment of the countryside, the country, the picnic, and nature. And this already sets the scene for, I think, a great way to that we can read this film, ELVIRA MADIGAN, because we understand that this is based upon elements of history that are very famous and that have developed into its own lore, into its own type of folklore or lore or legend in the context of a 19th century romance and romantic literature. As well as being a story about class and class structures, maybe a tale of doomed lovers in a manner of speaking, so it has the element of literary and tragedy, and also the idea of the expression of a social, cultural class or classes dynamic, again expressed or represented by the very nature of the backgrounds and the details of characters of our main of the main personages of the Sixten and Hedvig or ELVIRA MADIGAN, and their backgrounds, and whether they are able to overcome such backgrounds and obstacles, again, in the context of their relationship, including their own personal and familial backgrounds, past relationships, past marriages, etc., whether they're able to overcome this in what might be deemed to be the throes of passion, the heat of romance, that might hopefully lead to something that is long-lasting or longer-lasting, or whether this is ephemeral, whether this is something that is not meant to be long-lasting, but that is of the moment. And if it is of the moment, then how will those moments be lived by and between and together in respect of the relationship of these characters, Hedvig and Sixten, or Hedvig or ELVIRA MADIGAN. So this is, I think, the context of maybe the backbone of the story. And here we have applied to the cinematic expression in the great hands, the skilled genius hands of Bo Widerberg and company. We have the ambiance of history, the details laden in to suggest a sense of history, the military aspect, the aspect of class, and newspaper reportings and renderings that also remind us too that these are reflections of a historical past, not unlike other films that we have seen in the Bo Widerberg canon in the context of the set. Bring your attention to a film like Raven's End, and we might also talk about it in a future film, Odalen 31. But here we have it in the sweep of history, but the sweep of history is still rendered in a way that keeps a very close, intimate distance, a very close intimacy between us, the viewer, the spectator, and the world of the film. In other words, there is never a sense of a large expanse or distance between us. The gulf of history which might be felt in years, is never felt in cinematic terms. And I think that's due in large part to the wonderful use of camera, the wonderful camera language, the way that moments, very day-to-day moments, like a shot of a picnic blanket with baskets and wine and glasses being on top of it, ideas about how to eat eggs in a very interesting, seemingly mundane detail that actually comes about in a very key moment of the film, or the way that the light shines through branches of trees as characters are just sitting in the field, or maybe trying to, as some of these scenes in the Blu-ray menu show, just walking across the tightrope, which is again a representation of the background of the ELVIRA MADIGAN character, the Hedwig character, as well as how the world around them, these two characters, responds to them. Because part of the story too, or a main component of course, is the intimate world that's created between the two of them, almost in a way that is isolating them from the outside world, while at the same time aspects of that outside world seem to be encroaching upon that sense of the isolation of the two of them, the self-imposed isolation of the two of them, to the extent that we have again this wonderful tension between two seemingly competing aspects, that between the external and the internal, one might say. And so those external forces, they threaten the very existence of the intimacy of the two of them. And I think one of the great points of tension of this film, as well as one of the great sources of the furtherance of the emotional intensity of the relationship, or the way in which the two of them respond when they're together, is whether or not they will succeed at the end of the day, whether or not they will be able to overcome these external forces, or whether they will actually succumb or be forced to succumb. And that's again one of the great sources of tension, and one of the great sources of tension and potential release in whatever forms that it comes. And I think it also portrays or provides a wonderful window into the psychological workings of the characters. We get some great moments, some great dialogue of revelation of how these characters are feeling. And it provides some wonderful aspects of the performances. Pia Dergemark's performance as the ELVIRA MADIGAN, a Hedwig character, I think is one of those beautiful, sublime achievements. The acting performance is superb. Sometimes the camera focuses in on the face, on the close-up, as she is expressing doubts and maybe confusion, given the situation, which itself is one that is prone to a lot of doubt and confusion because of the intensity of the situation and the way in which it's seen as in many ways, a type of affront against traditional social mores. So that context, the psychological portrait of her character, given voice through the beautiful performance, I think is one of the great strengths of this, as well as the performance of Tommy Berggren, here Sixten, the other half, the other side of the coin of this relationship, and his struggles, especially how he deals with or copes with a sense of jealousy, of longing, in the throes of passion, while dealing or trying to confront with the cruel and harsh realities of the moment, in terms of money, in terms of finances, in terms of expectation, in terms of family relationships, etc. So there's a lot of pressure. There's a lot of pressure in that storyline, and it's dealt with a great sense of aplomb and great sense of a type of almost lyrical quality. There is a beauty and a stoic type of a stoicism to the character that I think also is well balanced, counterbalanced with a sense of the intimacy and the breadth and the scope of his passion, which again, in the hands of Tommy Berggren, in the performance, it's just utterly sublime. So we have, and again, pointing to the great cinematography, the work that we have here, it's very famous, the cinematography by Jürgen Paschen, and Jürgen Paschen's collaboration with Bo Widerberg here, and indeed going forward. The focus on light and the focus on the sort of natural beauty of the environment, which is augmented and highlighted so well and so poetically. And it also helps to then further this conceit or this viewpoint of Bo Widerberg's cinema, again, with ELVIRA MADIGAN being another great example, that being the tension between two differing, say, competing aspects, or whether those seemingly differing competing aspects can be said to be peacefully coexisting in an integral way with each other. And so we have also the tension between modernity and tradition, modernity in the sense of the relationship of the two of them versus tradition in the sense of what the expectations are and how those expectations might come and threaten the very existence of the relationship itself, a la tradition versus modernity. And also, I think this aspect of tradition versus modernity also is very much in display in the cinema itself. There is much made about how this was this choice of this use of lush photography, color photography, in this way, in this very lovely gesture, grand gesture of cinema. A lot was made about how this was very unconventional at the time of Swedish cinema. But it was this unconventional choice, I think, laid the groundwork for some real incredible commercial and critical and international success, as well as being one of the great landmarks of international cinema, Swedish cinema, and indeed the filmography of Bo Widerberg. So there's a way in which the use of these cinema norms, a la the color photography, itself is this manifestation of a type of modernity versus tradition, say in the context of Swedish cinema. So I think that's a very interesting meta take on this as well. So so there's a lot of examples, I want to say, in terms of this idea of modernity versus tradition in this film, but it's expressed, I think, in its own unique and stylized way. And again, too, we have this idea of Bo Widerberg and his approach to history. These are historical persons. This is a historical setting. It's a setting of the past, but it's again given an immediacy. There's no remote nature to it. It's given an immediacy, and it's given a sense of a closeness between us, the viewer, and the subject matter, thus giving a sense of a historical past that never feels distant, that never feels remote, but that always feels close to us. And so in that way, and the characters are given the room to live and breathe. So there's a sense of an almost a respectful passivity in the cinema, but at the same time, there are moments of cinematic style and flourish. So again, activity versus passivity, modernity versus tradition, these tensions combine in its integral way and a type of peaceful coexistence, as I mentioned before, as manifest in this film, ELVIRA MADIGAN. And I bring your attention, for example, to the way in which we see nature, the pastoral aspect of nature shown in this way that's almost, like, I don't want to say documentary-like, but that's almost trying to capture moments in time, real moments in time. Whereas at the same time, the application of things that are very, I think, familiarly, very in a familiar way, cinema applications, but done in a way that's so respectful. I bring your attention, for example, to the use of Mozart, or certain moments where the film suddenly flashes into static shots, for example. And I'll leave it at that. But in any event, yes, this film is a treat for the senses, and it's a true delight, and it's a romance, it's beautiful, it's a tragedy, and everything in between. What a landmark film this is. This is the work which is ELVIRA MADIGAN. The film ELVIRA MADIGAN is part of this release made by the Criterion collection, and this is the Bo Widerberg New Swedish Cinema, the Blu-ray set, the 4-disc Blu-ray set at collectively spine number 1189. ELVIRA MADIGAN is the film that is found on the 3rd Blu-ray disc of such 4-disc set. And with regard to the presentation, it says in the booklet on page 32, I quote, ELVIRA MADIGAN is presented in its original aspect ratio of 1.66 to 1. This new digital master was created in 2K resolution from the 35mm original camera negative. The original monaural soundtrack was remastered from the 35mm original soundtrack negative. Color was approved by cinematographer Jürgen Paschan. So this is a film that I have seen before prior to this Criterion release. But I must admit, I've never seen it look as good and sound as good as what I have here. I admit my experience with this film, I have seen it before, but I admit my experience with this film is limited. So I haven't, for example, I don't know all of the presentation and the release history of this film, but I have seen it. And when I first saw it a number of years ago, I was so taken with it, but I was incredibly taken with it now. I think because that immediacy that I'm trying to suggest here between the image and sound, the film, and us, the spectator, viewer, I think the closeness is so important for an engagement of Bo Widerberg's film. And I think that immediacy is preserved and respected so well in presentations in the set, including the presentation for ELVIRA MADIGAN. So this is a total and thorough, wholeheartedly thorough delight for the eyes and the ears, the senses. I must say the cinematography is lush and it's beautiful and poetic, and you see that in the way this it appears on the disc. And the sound, again, the sound needs to be delicate, and it needs to be, it has that sense of the timbre and the echo. So in other words, it's crisp and it's clean, but it's not overly clean. And I think that's a real testament to the strength of this. It has to have that sense of lack of a better phrase, a type of human quality to it, which I think is preserved so well in how it looks and sounds. So top marks all the way in terms of this. I've seen this film before, but never looking this good or sounding this good. I'm so impressed with this. And then, so now let's focus on the supplements that can be found with respect to ELVIRA MADIGAN. So ELVIRA MADIGAN is on disc number 3 of this set, Bo Widerberg's New Swedish Cinema. And when we go to disc 3, there is a supplement section, and I press it, and we have 3 supplements here. The first is entitled Jürgen Paschen. And Jürgen Paschen is the cinematographer for this and other works, but very memorably, the work that Paschen does for ELVIRA MADIGAN is world-renowned and so famous. And so we have a 2021 Criterion Collection discussion here. It says, in this interview conducted by the Criterion Collection in 2021, cinematographer Jürgen Paschen discusses meeting director Bo Widerberg and working with him on ELVIRA MADIGAN and Odalen 31. Or I should say, excuse me, pardon me for my it should be, excuse me, Odalen 38. So again, pardon me for my poor pronunciation of the language. But here we have Paschen's work, or Paschen talking about working with Bo Widerberg Busse here, which is a reminder of the interview that was found in the Raven's End second disc, and talking about filming locations, working with Bo Widerberg, the working relationship. There is the relatively small crew, but how everyone was working together in this wonderful teamwork effort way. The use of film locations, especially the outdoor scenes, which is a key aspect of what makes this film so successful. The use of natural light. Handheld camera work is also featured a lot, which is, there's a lot of static shots, which are so, I think, poetically framed, and also there are moments of handheld, which also show a sense of maybe an urgency or a panic or a type of frenzy, which I think is very much part of the film's dialogue and atmosphere and setting. So this is also part of the setup here. So these and other reasons make this interview with Paschen so wonderful and so great. Again, the work of Paschen, the cinematographer Jürgen Paschen, is one of the most important aspects of Bo Widerberg's cinema, and indeed this film and another film we'll talk about on disc 4. But oh my goodness, this could be one of the great examples of the cinematography from 20th century, and it's just it's breathtaking. And to hear the comments from Paschen himself talking about his working relationship with Bo Widerberg in this interview, top-notch news. So this is the first supplement that can be found. Next, we have a supplement which is called Bo Widerberg, and it says, in September 1967, to coincide with the release of ELVIRA MADIGAN, Bo Widerberg was a guest on the Swedish television program Filmrutan. For the occasion, a roundtable composed of children quizzed the director about his film. This is approximately 5 minutes. This is very similar to another Bo Widerberg interview excerpt that we saw on disc 2. Uh, but again, discussion of this. I think this is another reminder too of the way in which this film seems to be. There's a type of a quality of this film that is it's what while I wouldn't necessarily call it a family drama per se, it is a film that I think is one that does deal with maybe adult or adult-oriented themes, but there is an aspect of child perspective about it. It reminds me of the Raven's End interview disc, and it also reminds me of the short film, The Boy and the Kite, that we found on disc one. The child perspective, or the childlike perspective, the innocence that is, I think, part of the thematic concern of the world of Elvira Madigan. So we get that sense here, as well as furtherance of the image and the sort of the character that is Bo Widerberg, as well as his comments, brief, I admit you, yes, but comments on the film Elvira Madigan. So this is very, very great indeed. So this is the about approximately 5-minute excerpt, and then we have a 1-minute behind the scenes. And oops, let me stop there. Oops, there we go. Go back here. Sorry about that. I should push back to the. There we go. The behind the scenes. There is no explanatory note. I apologize. So it went straight to the behind the scenes. It's approximately 1 minute. There are points in some of the other supplements where we get little snippets from the behind the scenes. This is with the actors and some of the locations. It's only a minute, so it goes by very quickly. So it's not like a behind the scenes making a featurette per se, but it's just behind the scenes shots. Still very, very valuable and wonderful to have. Approximately 1 minute. But that concludes the supplements that we can find with disc 3. So once again, it might seem like the quantity is low on paper. And if you feel that way, I think that's very reasonable to feel that way. I myself also felt that I wanted more. I thought these supplements were great, especially with the director of cinematography interview, Jürgen Paschen. But oh gosh, it would have been great to have a commentary track or another maybe making of documentary made by Criterion about Bo Widerberg's work on this film. That would have been great. We do get notes in the booklet, which we'll talk about momentarily. So that might help to scratch the itch of curiosity that is engendered for anyone who wants to know more about Elvira Madigan after watching this film or some of the supplements. Be that as it may, I think the supplements are really fantastic. We get an insight into Bo Widerberg. We get this brief snippet of the behind the scenes. Plus, I think the standout for me is the interview with the director of photography. And then we get the film itself. So that's the supplements situation as we see it for disc number 3. And then to round out the discussion here, let me say that we have the booklet, and I've already removed the booklet for purposes of this video discussion or prior to starting the recording. We will talk about the overarching essay, which is the great essay by Peter Cowie, plus another writing, Bo Widerberg. We'll talk about this overall in a separate video, but for purposes of this film, Elvira Madigan, let me point you to the Elvira Madigan specific pages. On pages 8 and 9, you will be able to find some information about, you have a picture, and we have a write-up and information about the cast and crew, and some information about the film itself, the aspect ratio, running time, year. This write-up, by the way, I think matches the Criterion Collection website's write-up, but it's still nice to have it as a type of synopsis writing. And then the essay by Peter Cowie called Another Sweden is a general one, so it's written within the context of the set overall. Although I will point your attention to the fact that on pages 20, 21, and 22, here is pages 20 and 21, we have an Elvira Madigan specific section. So please check those out if you're interested. I should mention this right now. My strong suggestion would be to watch all the films first, and then you can watch, say, the Jürgen Paschen director of photography interview, which is part of the supplements, and then you can read the Peter Cowie essay. But I'll repeat this when we talk about the booklet in a later video. But in any event, my dear friends, I think that concludes what it is I wanted to say about this remarkable poetic film. This is Bo Widerberg's Elvira Madigan. Again, of the set, this is the film that I had seen before, but and I loved it before, but now it's just it is a towering achievement. so sweeping in scope. And that scope is both a historical based scope and also the scope of the breadth of the human heart and everything that can happen within the context of a human relationship. The highs and lows, the choices, the bliss, the moments of ephemeral beauty, and the realization of the cold, harsh truths of society writ large, etc., etc., etc. In this exquisite and sublime work of art from the filmmaker Bo Widerberg, it is this film, which is ELVIRA, MADIGAN. All right, my dear friends, so that's it for now. And so until we meet again, please be happy and healthy and well. And please keep on watching a lot of great, great, great movies, including ELVIRA, MADIGAN, including the works of Bo Widerberg, including the films found in the Criterion collection, and beyond. So until the next video, my dear, dear friends, stay strong, stay safe, and cheers.